Dapper Labs is working with Chainalysis to fight NFT, money laundering, and market manipulation. So the company is going to use Chainalysis's Know Your Transaction and Reactor tools, which flag suspected criminal activity and enable deeper investigations into specific transactions. So Dapper thinks illicit activity could increase as NFTs gain more mainstream traction. I think what a time it is to be in blockchain analytics. I think all of these companies are seeing the SEC come for them. I think everyone is just getting prepared for what might be in the future. And I think Dapper Labs is just trying to get ahead of it. But Will, I see you smiling and nodding away there. So I'll pass this off to you. What do you think of this partnership?
Yeah, I'm going to be honest. This story was kind of frustrating to see. It seemed like a PR story, like a headline story, like, hey, we're this big NFT company and we want everyone to know that we're extremely compliant with something that has just been kind of a buzzword within the crypto space itself and maybe of interest to regulators. Obviously, NFTs are like the story of this year more so than a lot of other coins or projects out there. Maybe Bitcoin's a little bit of a bigger story, but the two NFT bubbles we've seen so far, and the second one has been even larger. Big stories for the year. And a lot of people have been saying, oh, NFTs are used for money laundering. I don't know. I don't know if I agree with that. That seems just way too, you're reading into it too much. There's too much going on there. People are just flipping these things for fun. They're flipping images for fun. They want a new avatar. So they sell it. They get a lot. They get some nice Pengus out of it. Adding Chainalysis to the mix, like maybe that's a good thing from a compliance front as a company, but it really just seems like a PR stunt. And it really seems like it's just pay to play for people to come and maybe use Dapper Labs and feel better about themselves. It's almost like the greenwashing kind of stories we see with all these other companies out there. Jen, I'll throw it to you.
I just want to say, I don't think it's a far stretch to say that the SEC might come out next and say that NFTs are used for money laundering and use that as an excuse to serve subpoenas and sue companies like Dapper Labs to get a better understanding of what's going on in the NFT space. So I don't know. I really do think they're just trying to get ahead of something that's inevitably coming.
I mean, that might be a good choice, but it still doesn't mean it's like not ridiculous. Like if regulators are just not going to, if they're going to stick their heads in the sand and be like, I don't understand this market and I'm just going to throw lawsuits at everybody. Well, I guess a responsible thing to do is to get Chainalysis on board. But that's like the whole issue with the whole industry is you have to hire these other outside firms to protect yourself because these regulators don't understand, or even like the threat of the regulators getting involved. Even though like I'd love to see a percentage of the amount of people who are money laundering through Pengu NFTs. Okay, like that is just a ridiculous idea. We've had some reporting on CoinDesk in the past on Bitcoin being used by Hamas terrorists and other organizations, terrorist organizations. And those have always been like big headline stories. But when you look at the dollar amounts involved, it's really tiny. And it's also really easy to track. And I think those stories get blown out of proportion. I think they're important stories because it shows how we have Bitcoin and it is decentralized money. But these stories get blown out of proportion. Jen or Naomi, I'll throw it back to you.
Yeah, I have a slightly different take, but probably the same end result. Like, I think, sure, they're probably being used for money laundering, but because we have such ridiculous regulations around, all the strict controls around moving money, it makes sense that people want to find other avenues to get their money to people. Also, I take issue with the whole concept of money laundering and I don't associate it with like, well, all these terrorists and all bad people and sex traffickers. Like money laundering is this thing that government uses to arbitrarily go after people who are doing the same activity as someone else, but they just pick and choose who they want to, enforce as money laundering. Two people can be doing the same activity and the government says one of them is money laundering and the other one isn't. So I take whole issue with all of that vagueness around that. Also, I take issue with the concept of market manipulation. I mean, what does that even mean? I take issue with that in traditional finance, in the crypto space. People throw this around as if, this market is this self-governing entity and should be left to be wholesome and natural by itself. And anyone who's intervening in that process is market manipulation. It's like, well, no, they're just, using the system and probably being strategic. Like there's so much we could dig into with all of this. But when people use these buzzwords like money laundering, market manipulation, it always makes me just kind of take it all with a grain of salt.